Challenge of engaging with the next generation of investors is happily not just one for the industry, right? It's like lots of industries are dealing with this. So I think one of the first things we need to do is learn lessons from other industries, is understand what consumer product companies, what others are doing that are way ahead of us in the curve to engage. And so whether that means making the brand more accessible, so not just tied to financial products, but tied to things that they are otherwise engaging in. There was a conversation earlier about education in the schools. There's a conversation about being present where they are in a way that's relevant to them. Part of it is changing the language. There was conversations earlier in the sessions about how all of us get bogged down in all of the terminology and all of the weight of our own language, and turning it into, I think one of the firms mentioned that they get journalists to take the technical stuff and put it in human speak and make it more accessible that way. So it's about being flexible, being mobile in how we seek to have that access is going to be critical, I think. I think the challenge of differentiation is only getting harder and harder, right? So as the proposition seems more commoditized, because there are many more firms doing it, not just in our industry, the technology starts to make it look more and more similar. Frankly, the scope of returns, the scope of investment gets narrower and narrower, and regulation is helping to drive a lot of that, where it becomes harder to differentiate just because you're not allowed to. I think that question of differentiation when becomes maybe not a survival one, but a critically important one. I don't think it's as hard as we make it, though. I think if firms stop trying to do so much and say, what is it that either I am great at or want to be great at? What do I want to be known for? Right, so Coca-Cola isn't known as the best beverage company, it's the best company in a very narrow area. And if you say, I want to be best known to really serving X, X might be geography, X might be type of client, it might be, I'm going to be the best known for dealing with people who have sudden wealth events. And that's what people are going to come to me for. Or it might be around the special issues of globally mobile people in multi-jurisdiction, but getting a little bit more specific. It can still be complex, it can still be value add, but I think it will force us to start to really focus around what do I have to offer, or what am I going to build that is differentiated, as opposed to simply thinking, oh, if I change my brand from blue to blue and red, that'll really stand out. That's not differentiating, right? If I double my marketing budget, that's not going to just making more noise. It sounds like everyone else's noise isn't differentiation. It's becoming more narrow, more niche-like, more focused, probably. So I think the technology adoption question is a perennial challenge. As an industry, we're slow. That's come up several times. I think we're slow for a lot of reasons. We're slow because of just a lot of legacy systems. I think we're slow because there's a perception that clients don't want it. There's a history of our clients being sort of on the older side of the spectrum and, in theory, not wanting to engage in it. But I think we're all seeing that that's just not right, or at least it's not going to work in the future. Here, smaller firms and newer firms have an advantage because they don't have all the legacy issues. It becomes more cost effective to more quickly try and dive into making those changes. So there's a bit of an advantage. Whereas actually some of the bigger firms have a capital advantage, right? I think the big change is going to come hopefully in the next couple of years. There was a conversation earlier about how much capital is being deployed on a digital or systems basis just for the requirements, just for basic remediation, for regulatory required things. And as you hopefully start to crest that and start to have sort of more discretionary spend around doing things that are more for client outcome, even more for business efficiency, hopefully you'll see an unlocking of both innovation and capital to accelerate from where kind of the behind position that we're in. The biggest challenge for the industry, I don't know that there's a single one. It might be the identity. Who are we as an industry might be the biggest challenge. There have been some interesting conversations here today about, what does it mean to be a wealth manager? Why does someone need that? And is it the emotional hand-holding so that you don't do the wrong thing? Whereas all the information can be tech and AI and digitized, but your role, what you're doing as an industry, is the emotional issue, the hand-holding, as opposed to the technical piece. Or it could be that the industry evolves to being a partner, and it's a distribution model or a brand that we are offering, and behind the scenes we're partnering with a bunch of other industries and providers, and we become a gateway and a thoroughfare, and that's but I think the biggest challenge is, who are we? Who are we going to be? What does that model look like? Is maybe which incorporates a lot of other challenges, from robo to incursion from outside the industry to regulatory change, all of that sort of embedded in this who are we going to be when we grow up? There are a lot of different conferences. Why this one when there's so many different opportunities? I was explaining this to someone earlier who was here for the first time, and different conferences try and do different things. This is one of the few conferences where you get a lot of senior people who will come, be very open and engaging, often will stick around and have individual conversations, but without having to be Chatham House rules, without having to be sort of a no-names basis, there's a very open conversation about these are the challenges I'm facing, these are things I'm thinking about, these are things I'm doing, about to do, etc. The insight across the industry, and helpfully it's not just UK, right? So you have an international aspect, you have across the board, so it doesn't just boil down to tech and reg. There's enough of that, but it deals with all sorts of stuff. The sessions today about the service model, the sessions today about next gen, it shows the range of conversation you get into, and frankly, it's just a great day to move away from the day-to-day and actually think and engage and reflect, and that feeds into your own internal discussions about business strategy and development and so forth, and the networking is great. It's a premier conference.